Hello and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready. And this time we thought we'd talk about terrain.
Terrain.
You know, terrain can be a lot of different things. We've got just a couple of examples. This is some 3D prints that I bought off Etsy and then painted up. I put the paint and then the grass and everything on there. They turned out pretty good. There's pre-painted stuff that you can just buy. These are from Gale Force 9, I think. They're little evil rocks. And then there's stuff like this, little houses.
360 view.
360 view. These were a gift, so I'm not exactly sure where they're from, but you get the idea.
Also, this is probably making its land value go down because it's next to a graveyard.
That's true. Property values are going to go down when you're next to the skull rocks, I'm sure. So anyway, we thought we'd talk about terrain. First, why it's good, what you should use for terrain, and also maybe some rules for terrain. Caveat, as always, we're talking about this from a very casual standpoint. We really like to play narrative.
Yes.
We do like to play matched play, but we're not in the tournament scene. We don't have the All Dragon Stormcast list or the Lumineth Realm lore, the Mega Gargants. We're not playing the hottest stuff. We're playing the things that are fun for us.
Yep.
And, we have a real good time with it. So with that sort of groundwork, why is terrain good, Drake?
Terrain is good because it can give a little more oomph to your games.
Yeah, that's true. What do you mean by oomph?
I mean, with shooting, line of sight is a big part. So say I have a dude here who wants to shoot you dude over here. He can't see you, so he can't shoot you. Unless, of course, you're the cheating Lumineth.
The cheating Lumineth. So, yes, absolutely. So there seems to be more and more shooting in Age of Sigmar. We use some.
We use Caradron.
Yeah,
that's all shooting.
Caradron is all shooting. But typically, even when we include shooting, it's sort of in a mixed arms list where we have shooting as one component of a broader army.
Yes.
It's not just the bow snakes. It's not just the sentinels or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, having terrain to deal with line of sight issues is good. Mm-hmm. Another thing that's great is if you're just looking for melee stuff, sometimes you've got 4 objectives or even 6 objectives laid out on the map, and they're always, in lines, or sometimes they'll be on corners. Yep. And having a terrain can be really good to sort of break up those lanes.
Because if you have a brick of 40 crew boys, they aren't going to be, if they try to squeeze through, it's going to be really hard.
Yes. Actually, that's a separate point. But yes, creating little choke points is really sort of cool because maybe the choke point gets you to an objective, but the person defending it, it'll put you in a little bit of an ambush, a worse situation.
I remember you doing that way before Nurgle got an update, where I had my brick of 20 chain rasps buffed by the Guardian of Souls and dude against your 10 Blight Kings.
Yep.
You just couldn't get through my guys because I was doing the stuff that Nighthunt does to not have damage, and I was just healing everything you brought low.
Well, not only that, but there was 2 rocks or pillars, I forget what it is, 2 that were in the way,
so I could only get 2
Blight Kings in, but because of the small base and the ability you had to fan out, you were able to get a lot of chain rasps.
And
so it allows for that kind of
stuff down.
Yeah, it allows for that kind of tactical play. Also, if you've got objectives that are all in a line like that, it can be a little bit easy to just run back and forth between them. And so terrain does a great job of breaking that up. So if you can put some big blocks, whether it's rocks or houses or whatever, in between the objectives, it forces people to have to make choices to go this way or that way to bolster flanks rather than just, we'll just all meet in the middle and roll dice till someone dies, right? So terrain is really good. You can overdo it, certainly.
Yes.
Where now it's impossible to move anything.
Like this much times 5 billion.
Times 5
so
billion.
It's just like that. You can only move a single file line of chain rasp.
Sure. So you don't want to go too crazy with it, but in general, I like the tables, and you've probably seen it on our channel, to be a little bit crowded. I like there to be some stuff going on, some stuff in the way where you have to make decisions and move.
Like this space is bare minimum where it can go. I can barely put my 2 hands apart from each other.
Yeah, in fact, if you had it that much, maybe we do a line and have sort of near impassable terrain,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, terrain is great. The one thing that's not so great about terrain in Age of Sigmar is there are very few rules for terrain.
All it is cover. That's the main rule. And then
and cover is not
useful.
Yeah, the way they have, you have to have all models within an inch of the thing. No model can be closer to the firing unit than the cover itself. And so it ends up being a little bit clunky to get cover.
You'd have to have like something big facing this side with only a 3-man unit.
Yeah, and because of the way they do line of sight, where if you can see any little piece of the model, they can shoot you.
Even the tiniest little nub stick of a hammer, you can get blasted to smithereens.
Yeah, so terrain isn't always as impactful as it could be.
So I say you should be able to see like an arm, like some kind of body part.
You need to see some substantial portion,
Yes, not just a tiny little piece of a hammer.
Well,
to blast them.
Here are a couple things that we've done in our games that I think have been very helpful. One is basically all terrain is impassable.
Yes.
Now,
unless you fly.
Yes. So in the rules, you can climb terrain.
But that's...
And in fact, you can climb it, take your, Ardboy, and he can get halfway up with his movement, and then he'll sit there until the next time it's his movement phase.
And then get all the way
halfway up the next time. But you can't have him halfway up,
standing.
So you have to sort of remember where he is, and it's bonkers. So
would you say all terrain is impossible unless you fly?
Basically, all terrain is impassable. If we have low stuff or stuff like this that you can get on, that's fine. If we have little fences and stuff, you can climb that. That's fine. But like these houses, stuff like that, if the model can't be on there, then it's impassable. And what impassable means basically is it's like a void in the thing. Nothing can go on it. Nothing can go through it.
You can only go boing.
Right. Well, if you fly, you can go over it, sure, but you can't land on it, right?
You can't go this.
Right. It's basically out. The other thing where the rules come in that's a little wonky is garrisons. We don't tend to use garrisons
only
very
if they're
much.
Important.
Yeah,
like Seraphon.
Narrative play will use it if there's something like the Loon Shrine or the Realm Shaper Engine.
I don't think the Loon Shrine can be garrisoned.
Yeah, it's a garrison.
Oh.
You can have up to 30 models? I forget.
So you could just hide a brick of 20 cool boys in there and just go, Wah-ya!
Not in a Loon Shrine.
Oh. Oh, but if it's a group...
Your grots or whatever.
If it's a Gloom Spy army, but you bring in cool boy allies, could the cool boys hide in there?
I'm sure they could.
Yeah. Proper orky. Proper morky.
So, but the thing is, once they're in there, then the terrain feature itself becomes becomes the base, exactly.
A giant base of death.
Suddenly, they might be in combat with different things. They might be on an objective, and now, you've got 30 guys in that Loon Shrine, all counting on the objective, and they're all getting the bonuses of being in a garrison, so they have the minus save, and I think -1 to hit, or whatever it is. It's wacky. So when we've done garrisons, we tend to do them only in narrative, but even when we do them in matched play, like for Realm Shaper Engine or Caradron with their boats, right, can be garrison.
The boaties.
Typically, we try to either keep the garrisons away from the objectives, so that won't be an issue, or make it so that the guys in the garrison can't contest objectives. There's that too.
Here's what I tend to do if it's thingy.
What?
Just use a monster's action and destroy it. It's simple. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, you can destroy stuff.
Just get rid of it.
So all that is good. So just be aware of garrisons. And garrisons have weird rules where you can enter a garrison as long as you're within 6 inches.
Sorry.
But there's no requirement that you be in or out of combat. So you can actually enter the garrison
in combat.
From being in combat. You can exit the garrison into combat with somebody.
Cheating.
Right?
Essentially.
So it's weird. It just has a lot of weird interactions.
So basically you can hide if your Blight Kings are aligning with something that has a garrison.
Anything, right? It doesn't have to be Blight Kings, but anything could pile out and then be in combat immediately without a charge roll. So it's just
basically
it's weird.
Free
it's weird.
12 million inch charges.
So that's something to be aware of. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of rules. We've started introducing a river. Oh, I should have got some river pieces out.
Yeah.
We started introducing a river into our games.
Which we've made up river
And
rules.
we've had some river rules where you lose an inch if you walk through it.
That's the
So
river.
far it's been okay.
Yeah.
I think we've liked it. We'll continue to experiment with
Miracle
it.
has to avoid the river. He
But
only gets 3-inch move.
It's true. But it's good to have that kind of terrain that, gives you, that you have to worry about when you're moving around the board. The other...
I have a question about the river terrain.
What?
If you're able to move out of the river, but you're still in, do you get max inches, or is it still shaped?
Well, it's whatever we decide, but I would say if any part of your move touches the river, you're max an inch.
Okay.
So, so you can make up your own stuff. Now, there is one other terrain rule, which is the mystical terrain, where you pick something and you roll on a die, and that becomes arcane, or it becomes damned, or it becomes whatever. Yeah. We never use it.
No, it's dumb.
Yeah, it's just, either you're picking things that
You'll forget.
you'll forget, and so, it's just one more thing to forget. Or a lot of times, depending on how we set up, I'm looking at it thinking, if I have to pick something in his territory, I'm going to pick something way in the corner just so it doesn't impact the game, because I don't want him to get some good thing where now his wizard gets bonuses to cast or whatever. Forget that noise. I'm going to put it all the way in the corner, so if the wizard does go over there and cast spells, he can't reach me anyway, right? And so because of that,
Unless he gets bonus range.
you're almost incentivized to minimize its impact rather than to play it up as another point of contention. Right, I want to get these objectives, but I also want to hold the arcane place or the power play or whatever, so I get that bonus. And it never really works out that way.
No.
So we don't ever do that. But if you are looking at terrain, I think making stuff impassable is really, really good.
Yes.
I think making sure you have enough of it is good. And, I mentioned all these things, right? These came pre-painted. These I painted myself. But they're all, purchased.
Yes.
Right? But you don't have to purchase terrain either. I mean, you can make stuff really, really simply. If all you want is rocks, literally you can take some tin foil, smash it up, gargle it into a vaguely rock-like shape,
And then paint it.
and you've got yourself some boulders. Really, it's not super hard.
Another thing you can do is with the sprues you use to build models, you can line them up, glue them together, do 2 stick sprues that are a little longer, glue those together, and you have fences.
Yeah, actually, that was among our first terrain. Is I would take all the
No, that was the first piece of terrain.
edges of the sprues, and I would just slat them all together. I would do one long one, and then slat, and I would use my nippers to make one side pointy, and those would be all the ones facing up. And you had not bad fences or palisades or stuff like that. Not bad at all, and it costs $0 because it comes with the stuff you're already buying.
Yep.
It's just the extra sprue. So that's a fine way to go too. And just to make sure that you have...
Recycling.
Yeah. But just to make sure that you have stuff on the battlefield for your guys to interact with. Because if you don't have that, it's just a rush to the center and then see who rolls better. But the more you've got maneuverability, the more you have opportunities to do tricky things and to tactically play against your opponent. And that's really pretty fun.
Yes.
Any other thoughts on terrain?
This stuff makes my brain hurt.
It makes your brain hurt?
I'm talking like an orc.
Okay, it makes an orc's brain hurt?
Yes.
Yeah, orcs wouldn't build like this, I suppose.
This makes a hard. Hard.
So, terrain, number one. I mean, after you get some models, right, that's probably the number one thing. You get some models, you get some dice. But probably the next thing you want to do, even before you get 2,000 points or whatever, is you want to get some terrain on the battlefield because that's really going to change. It's going to make your play more interesting than going from 1,000 points to 2,000 points. That will be more interesting. I think that is cool. But that difference is less than the difference of having no terrain and then suddenly having terrain on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. You know, if you're a really talented woodcarver, I just randomly thought of this. You could probably carve like wood Warhammer models. They won't be as beautiful, but just like
I'm sure there's people who do all kinds of modeling stuff, and there's great YouTube channels. Black Magic Craft is one of my favorites. The hobby thing that he does is basically making terrain, and making dungeon tiles and stuff like that for D&D and other games, and you can see how that could be its own hobby, but also how it's not so hard. You know, you can either buy stuff because it's in this case pre-painted, and you spend a little money, or you can spend very little money, but instead give yourself a project, so you're spending time to get good terrain. So if you don't have money, great, you don't need it, you have a project. If you don't have time, but you have some money, great, you can buy some terrain. But either way, get some terrain on the table. It's going to improve your wargaming experience.
This is going to make your brain hurt.
If you're an orc.
Now you can't exit.
You're going through the chimney like Santa.
Wait, now you can exit.
There you go.
Wait, the house.
All right, cool. Well,
now the house is sort of line up.
This has been.
Now you can't get out. You're stuck.
You get out through this door. There you go.
Now you can't get out.
Well, thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of Battle Ready.